welcome to my channel, Spiritual Healing. I am Patricia, and I'm here today with my wonderful soul sister and co-creator, Emmy, and her channel is Holistic Genie. And hello.
Hello.
And we're coming together today because we're actually working on a series called German New Medicine and its relationship to chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia. And in that series, we've done probably 3 videos, maybe more, we'll see. But we keep referencing A Course in Miracles. And so today we wanted to come together and co-create and put together just some basic information on what the Course in Miracles is, what it isn't, and some ideas on how, if you're interested in doing the Course in Miracles, some ideas on how to get started with it, because it can be a little bit overwhelming, can be a little bit hard to understand. And so we just want to offer some basic background of what it's about and how you can get started on it. Yes.
Hey.
So I have sort of like my idea of how I perceive it, and then maybe Emmy, you can share what you think your perspective on it. So I see it as like it's like a mind training program, really, and it's like a step-by-step process of deprogramming our conditioned mind, our mind of fear and separation, which is basically the ego, and reprogramming at the same time our mind to move into love and unity and oneness with God and all our brothers and sisters.
That is a great description. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you see it?
Yes, it's definitely a simultaneous unlearning of ego thought system, which I like to refer to as a software program.
Yeah.
So you are deprogramming from this ego software program and simultaneously retraining your mind with the truth. And it's not just going from one software program to another. It is going from lies and illusion
and fear
to truth. So it is so profound. It is so profound that it's really difficult to gather the words to put it into context. It's so beautiful and so profound. It's definitely not for everyone.
No.
Definitely not for everyone. And it's one of those books that you don't just read. It's something that you study, and you study for a long time. Because if you read it all the way through, just like you read a normal book cover to cover, there's no way that you could retain anywhere near the amount of knowledge and information and wisdom that you could if you were studying it. Yeah. And also to note that it would be my opinion that there's no way that you could gain the insight that you could doing it on your own versus doing it with other people.
Yeah. Yes.
It's such a rich experience working through A Course in Miracles with other people and sharing your growth and your journey along the way. It's just amazing. It's like next level spiritual growth.
Yeah. And Alan Cohen, who's A Course in Miracles teacher, his description of the course is a self-study system of spiritual awakening. And you know, I've had the Course in Miracles on my bookshelf since 2010 is when I bought the book. And I tried to dig into it then, and I couldn't. And over the years, it moved with me to many homes, and it was always one of my keeper books. And I would try to get into it, and I couldn't, and try and couldn't, and try and couldn't. And finally, I was ready for it. But I lugged it around with me for like 11 years. So just to go into a little bit more about what the course is and how it came into being. So yeah, so it's a self-study program for spiritual awakening. And it came about in the 1960s through a woman called Helen Schuckman and a colleague of hers, William Thetford. And they were professors of psychology in New York City. And at that time, they were working in a really toxic environment. And there was a lot of inner conflict and a lot of fighting within their, I don't know what you call it, their group of professors.
Mm-hmm.
There's a name for it, it's not coming. And so they had one sort of particular day where things were really toxic. And one of them said to the other, there's got to be a better way. And the other said, well, and I can't remember who was who. And the other said, well, you know, if you figure it out, I'm with you 100%. And that was the little bit of willingness that opened up Helen to receive this text. And what happened is over a period of time, she started to have these really mystical dreams. And she reflects that that was Holy Spirit kind of priming her to receive this content. And it should be noted that the Course in Miracles uses Christian text and Christian language, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But it's not a Christian teaching. It's non-denominational, but it uses the Christian language, which is a barrier to some people. But anyways, Helen was an atheist. So she started, after having these dreams, one day she was, I don't know, just sitting at her desk or meditating, and she heard a voice that said, "This is a Course in Miracles. Please take notes." And she was like, "What the heck?" And so she goes to Bill and she says to him, and he knew about her dreams and stuff like that and what was going on. And she said, "I don't know what to do." And he said, "Well, why don't you just take notes?" And so she was really great at shorthand. And so she sat down with a steno pad and she started to receive these teachings. And she doesn't say that she channeled them. She doesn't, because she didn't have to go into like a trance state or meditative state. She could like just sit down and the information would come. And so she never felt like she was channeling it or that she had to be in any kind of altered state to receive it. The phone could ring, she could pick it up and then just come back and keep writing. But this is the very first thing she ever wrote. "This is a Course in Miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. The course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. This course, therefore, can be summed up very simply in this way. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God." That's the first thing she received. And she was like, "Holy crap." And So she proceeded to take notes. Bill Thetford transcribed them and typed them out. And Helen actually, it was very traumatizing for her because the information she was receiving was absolutely contrary and against everything she believed in. And so the fact that this information came through an atheist was really quite significant, because if she'd been a Christian mystic, or had a background in religious philosophy, people could say, yeah, she's just making this up, whatever. This went absolutely against everything she believed in. So she couldn't have made any of this up.
That's really, and Jesus is the one that they're saying came through and
Yeah.
wrote this book.
Yeah.
And that is just like his character, to pick someone completely unlikely to work through. I mean, he had this motley crew of misfits, thieves and liars and tax collectors, and he made disciples out of them, and they were healing people and raising people from the dead. Like, he was literally the way shower of how to embody unity and how to ascend. And so that he chose to come through an atheist is just, that's Jesus.
Yes. And, some people may dispute that Jesus is the one who delivered this text, but in the actual text in chapter 6 on the crucifixion, Jesus is speaking in first hand. Like, he's saying, this is what really happened. This is what the crucifixion was really about. And a big part of why I believe that this text came through, and other people, I think, would agree with this, it's the correction principle for the original teachings of Christ. Because Jesus was just an ordinary man who embodied pure enlightenment. He walked the earth as a fully enlightened being at a time where there was tremendous darkness on the planet. And because of that light, he was actually persecuted and murdered. Because of that, he didn't really get a lot of time to spread his message. And his message was, we are all one. We are one with God. We are one with creation. We are all love. We're all connected. And unfortunately, what happened after he died is that his teachings were misinterpreted by people who were unconscious. And this turned into a religion and many different forms of Christianity. I mean, even within Christianity, so many don't agree with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is that the text has been so misinterpreted, yet there are Christian mystics like Joel Goldsmith and Mary Eddy and Teresa of Avonlea. They're Christian mystics through time who have been able to interpret the truth of Jesus's teachings, but those things were always suppressed, and mystics were burned at the stake. Mm-hmm. So the church took the teachings of Jesus and turned it into a way to control people, and the church instills fear, and it abuses, and it supports separation, and it's and so I believe this book came through as a correction principle. And the chapter on the crucifixion, what he says is, I didn't die on the cross for the sins of all you guys. I died on the cross demonstrating that I could love and forgive even the people who were murdering me. That was the level of consciousness that he was at. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. And Jesus was murdered by his enemies, and he loved them anyway. And that was his demonstration. That's what he wants us to get from the crucifixion. Love everyone, even your enemies, because below the the demonstration of the enemy. We are all pure, divine, conscious, beautiful souls.
Mhm.
And it's the ignorance, which is the sin. It's the separation, which is the sin. And he was trying to teach that it is all love. And you can even love the person who's murdering you.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I really like how the course has different definitions for some common terms, like sin is not an evil to be punished.
Right.
Sin is a mistake to be corrected.
Yes.
And when you look at it like that, it just it really makes it easy to believe and understand that God is love. God is unconditional love. And like you were saying, Patricia, there is such a pervasive narrative of fear running through Christianity, on the basis of hell. And really, the course shows us that hell isn't a place, much like heaven isn't a place. It's a state of being. And you can be in hell at any time, and you can be in heaven at any time.
And mostly we are living in hell
Mm-hmm.
because we are living in fear. We're living in separation. We're living in judgment, competition, insecurity, all that stuff that the ego mind and the conditioned programming that we're raised with is we're living in hell. And and like you say, it's a concept. It's not a place.
Right, right. And if it's really hard to understand unconditional love because we've never really experienced it, and we don't
Yeah.
know what it is. And when you can start to grasp intellectually what it means to be and have unconditional love, you begin to understand that God would never, ever use fear to manipulate his children.
Never.
Believe this way or else.
Yeah.
Think this way or else.
Yeah.
And that's it's not true. It's probably one of the biggest lies that we believe. There are so many people who just live in fear, and they hide who they are. They hide what they want, what they love to do, because they are so afraid of the exclusivity, of being excluded. Well, I don't want to go to hell, so I better just think and do and believe this way. And they don't understand that that is the trap. That is ego mindset. We have created this image of God based on ego beliefs. God is unconditional love.
Yeah.
And we don't understand that.
No. And you and I were chatting one day about how it's really unfortunate that the course isn't accessible to so many people because there's so much Christian wounding and so much fear. And so there are people that, believe that this text is downright evil and blasphemous.
Mhm.
And, if you share with some of your Christian friends, I'm not Christian. I grew up as a heathen. So I don't have the Christian wound to heal. But many people have really deep wounding, especially in the Catholic Church,
Mm.
really deep wounding. Like they go to church every day and they'd have to say out loud, I am not worthy of God's love. I am just a measly worm, not worthy of God's love. Like, what's that? And and so because there's so much Christian wounding, wounded Christians won't come to this. Some do, but many won't. Because of the language, the Christian language. People who aren't Christian won't come to it because it has Christian language. And it uses, and it's also patriarchal. Like you never hear the word mother, sister, divine feminine in it anywhere. It's all Father, Son, Holy Spirit, the sonship, my brothers, my father, it's all patriarchal. But here's the thing. If you're triggered by that language, that's just showing you that that's something that needs to be healed.
Yeah, we have so many attachments.
Yeah.
So many attachments to verbiage and language. And, the Son of God is just you. I'm the Son of God. Patricia is
I'm the Son of God. Yeah.
Yeah. We're all the sonship.
Yeah. And in the beginning, I was like crossing out in the text Son of God and changing it to child, and father, I was changing like to parent and like that. And then you know what? It just dissolved. And it was like, it doesn't matter. It is, it's the truth behind the words that matter. And there has to be some language used. And I think because there was so much wounding in the whole Christian world, that might be why the Christian language is used as a catalyst. It's used as a trigger to help heal those wounds. And the other thing about the course, so it was written in 3 parts. First, she received the text, which was, I don't know, like 600 pages or something. Then she received the daily lessons, and it's 365 daily lessons. And then she received the teacher's manual. And it took 7 years for all of this information to come through. And then they kind of were done. They put it in binders in a filing cabinet. And we're like, oof, we don't know what to do with this now. So anyways, eventually it started to be distributed through mainstream, and they created their own publishing company in order to publish it. And because other publishing companies wanted to edit it so much, and they wanted to keep it really pure as to how it came out. So one of the issues with the Course in Miracles is the language. It's really hard to understand. It uses something called an iambic pentameter, which, unless you're like an English major, you probably might not understand what that is, but it's basically a rhythm of speech that was used like in poetry and in like verse drama. And so Shakespeare used it a lot, and Wordsworth used it sometimes, and a lot of poets used this pattern of speaking. And so it comes through in this iambic pentameter. And it also has what was it, Emmy? The double
negatives.
Yeah.
There are a lot of double negatives. And so that can be another barrier. The language, the way that it's written, can be another barrier to people coming. But I'm just going to use myself as an example. I'm a Bible reader. I read the Bible every day. I've read the Bible my entire life. And I always had to find a version that was easier to understand because there was such a language barrier for me. The Shakespearean language, like the these and the thous and the double negatives, were so hard for me to understand. Like I just didn't get it. And so I really had to have a simplified version of the Bible. One of my favorites is the New Living Translation. But as I grew and awakened more spiritually, I was able to understand it. So it's very much one of those things where when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So, if you want to start reading this and language is a barrier, just know and understand that if you continue and you're devoted and this is something that you really want, that you really desire, you will be able to understand it when
Yeah.
you're ready, when the time is right. So.
And what I found really helpful was actually listening to audiobooks. So Carol Howe, she's a real great Course in Miracles teacher, and she actually knew Bill Thetford. There, she was friends with him, so she goes way back. She's in her 80s now. She has she narrates the text, and also there is the original narration with this guy with this really sort of soft, relaxing voice.
Mm-hmm.
I found listening to it and reading along with it really helped. So I'd do both. I'd listen and read, or I'd just listen. And after a while, it's kind of almost like learning a new language in a way. And yeah, and then now I read it and it's quite easy to understand. I still get tangled sometimes every now and then, but yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and the other thing, and the Course says this over and over, you don't actually have to understand it. There's a frequency that comes through this text that heals you. And you just have to show up.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so there's something just really amazing about that.
Yeah. One thing that amazes me about it is that I've been reading texts on unity and oneness and spiritual enlightenment, and there's so many books that talk about what it's like when you've reached that and how things are changed and how your vision changes and your focus changes and your consciousness expands and awakens. They're talking about the state, but there isn't any book that I've read so far that shows you a methodical way of getting from this thought system to this thought system. Course in Miracles has a lesson for every day of the year. If you just show up, even if you don't understand it, even if you don't agree with what the lesson is talking about, if you're willing to devote yourself to it, it will work on you.
Yeah.
And just there will be breakthroughs along the way, and there will be moments where you're just like, oh.
They're called course-gasms.
Yeah, our living the course school, the teachers call them course-gasms.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really, yeah.
Yeah, and so on that note, like if you're wanting to dive into this content, we totally recommend, and a lot of people do. Alan Cohen recommends this, and even Carol Howe recommends. Start with the daily lessons, because even though Helen received it text lessons and teacher's manual, it actually works better to do lessons, text, and teacher manual, because the lessons really, really help you to begin to live the principles of the Course. And then you can read the text along with it as you go, just read a few paragraphs a day even. But I read the text first, and it was just so heady, and I just had such a hard time with it. But as soon as I devoted my time to doing the daily lessons, everything changed. And like you say, doing the lessons in a group, or committing, maybe even just with one other person to do the lessons together. I tried to do the lessons myself. I started like 3 times, and I'd get to like day 20 and I would bail. And so it wasn't until this came up, this Living the Course program, and it was kind of expensive. But we had been following Aaron Abke for some time, and he's such a great teacher, and he really can just tease out the nuances and simplify what the Course is teaching. He just makes it so digestible. And so that's how Emmy and I both found our way into living the course program and then met each other there. And it's been a game changer. Absolutely.
Oh, it's life-changing.
Yeah.
Like I know that there are a lot of programs and spiritual growth things out there that say it's life-changing. And they probably are, but this is like, wow. It
Yeah. And
yeah.
it's the daily lessons. It's that daily practice because I've been studying this stuff for years. I mean, I started studying Eckhart Tolle, I don't know, 15 years ago or something like that. And Eckhart actually was a student of the Course in Miracles after his spiritual awakening.
I'm gonna let you talk for just a second.
Okay. Okay. And so Eckhart was a student of Course in Miracles after his spiritual awakening. And when I listen to his lessons now, I see how much he is actually teaching the Course in Miracles principles. But he has removed the Christian language. He has removed the concept of love and the Christian terminology. And he talks about just, presence and being in the now and being in the present moment. The problem I had with Eckhart is that I could never get to that present moment. I just had too much conditioning, mind programming that just kept me in the pain body, and I could not move into that experience of the present moment. And it was when I started doing the Course Miracles and started doing the daily lessons that really started to open up for me. So it is like just such an amazing program to help get you out of the patterning and the conditioning that is preventing you from being in presence, from being in love, from being in this, moment to moment awareness. And the daily lessons, they train you to be in the present moment. You have to remember your lessons, like sometimes, some days it's every 30 minutes.
Yes, yes. Sometimes it's every 15 minutes.
Oh,
And
is it oh, that's
some of
right.
them, yeah, some of them
Yeah,
are 15 minutes. And there's an app, there's several apps, but there's this one app that I downloaded and you can set alerts. And so the alerts will go off on your phone at the frequency that you choose to set. And it helps you to practice the lessons. And it's just, I can't do it every time it pops up, but when I do,
yes, no,
yeah, it's because you have to live life, right?
yes, yeah,
You
you
can't
do.
just you can't just sit here and do the course all day long. I mean, that would be awesome, but so,
But in that moment, like when the alarm goes off, I don't use it. I'm trying to use my own practice. But even if you can't do the actual practice, you're in the moment when that alarm goes off.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah. So, if you want to get into this, if you want to start the course and you don't know where to start, I would totally recommend just this really soft entry. Marianne Williamson is another Course in Miracles teacher. This book, The Gift of Change, it just sort of primes you for having the courage to go through something that's really going to just turn your life right around. And I had been struggling with the course for some time. I'd been watching Aaron Abke. I was reading it. I had joined a study group that didn't work out, by the way. You may join a study group that doesn't work out, and that's okay. And I'd kind of given up on it. And then my sister recommended A Course in Miracles Made Easy by Alan Cohen. And this, I would totally recommend reading this first. This is like a real gentle, soft entry into the Course in Miracles. It explains all the basic principles, gives you an idea what to expect. He also recommends starting with the daily lessons. And it's a really great sort of primer to get you going into the course, and then start with the daily lessons. And if you can find a group somewhere that's doing the daily lessons, Carol Howe has on YouTube a playlist that is free, and she goes through the daily lessons and she explains them sort of in plain English. also recommend Aaron Abke's YouTube channel. We'll link to all of this below. He has a playlist on the Course in Miracles where he just sort of teaches some of the basic principles of the course. I totally recommend that as well.
Yes, yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Carol Howe has a really good, when you listen to her read, she puts the pauses in the sentences and between the sentences that help you understand that language. She's really good at it. Really good at it.
Yeah. And you can buy, like she just recently, I think it was about 8 months ago, published her version of the narration of the text, and you can get it on our website. I'll link to that below. And it's like $30 or something like that. You know, and it's like 32 chapters. It's like hours of content.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, the way she enunciates really helps you to understand the language.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that's about all I have to say. What about you?
Oh, I don't know. It's just a book. It'll just change your life. No big deal.
Oh, yeah. And it's so amazing. And then, you know, another teacher I would recommend doesn't teach A Course in Miracles, but was teaching the Course in Miracles before it came in to creation. And that is Joel S. Goldsmith. And I just recently got Emmy onto him.
Yeah.
And I've been studying him for 10 years. And I've gone back to studying his work, and oh my gosh, it is landing on such a deep level that I just couldn't access before when I was reading or listening to his work. I got it intellectually, but I'm embodying what he's teaching. And to me, actually, the perfect meal is the Course in Miracles daily lessons. Its list of miracles. It has a list at the beginning of the book, 52 miracles, and Joel Goldsmith's teachings. The two of them together are just like beautiful.
Yeah, indeed.
Well, thank you for joining me, Emmy, on this conversation about this amazing life-changing text, A Course in Miracles. And we just want to encourage anyone who might be interested in it to just dive in and, you know, take some of the recommendations we have here. And we'll, again, link to all the resources in the description box below the video, and including our emails, so you can reach out to us if you have any specific questions. So you can put that in the comments below or just contact us directly.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next time.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.